Can you talk?
I can talk. I'm continuing to talk, and I'll kind of like whisper, but like into the microphone. Good?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to like put this in my mouth for some reason. I don't know why.
Tell the audience how you wanted to show your flaws.
Oh yeah, so like I wanted just to be as vulnerable as possible. So I didn't take a shower today. I didn't brush my teeth. Yeah.
That's funny. That's not how I think of vulnerability, but I respect it. It's like you want to come at your worst.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's also like to set the bar really low. So if they like go look at my Instagram, they're like, oh, he actually is normal in real life, you know?
To set the bar. Dude, I think you're going to set it really high. I think you're going to change some lives today. And
You think so? That'd be crazy.
I really believe it. Dude. Yeah, I think that I was just telling him why I'm a Christian, but I don't advertise this podcast as a Christian podcast. And that's because the algorithms these days, they're so accurate that if you advertise yourself as a Christian or you're like a Christian influencer, then you only get served to Christians. And all the biggest influences in my life were creators or artists or people that I liked for whatever they did. And then I later found out they're Christian. It was like they had earned my respect in other ways. And then I was like, oh, they're Christian. And they kind of made it like cool again for me.
Yeah.
And now, and it's not that it needs to be cool or that I need to like fill some hole, but I want to be I want to be someone that anyone can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, I know that your story is probably going to cover some Christian ground or some, I don't know, I don't even like the word Christian because it's not about religion, it's about relationship.
I know. I totally agree with that.
But I know we'll probably end up talking about God, so I did kind of want to start this episode with a prayer. And I just want to pray over Jaydon that I would ask him the right questions and that his story would shine light on the right people. And I pray for the audience that whether they believe in God or they don't believe in God, if they're Christians, atheists, whatever, that this story would speak to them. And I know we're going to cover some intense things, like we're going to talk about suicide and stuff like that. And I just pray that whoever needs to hear this would hear it. And God, thank you for this opportunity and these people you put in my life. And yeah, amen.
Amen. Very good.
I feel kind of bad though, because you just told me you just told me you didn't know if you'd want to go on something like super intensely religious, and this this is already the most religious I've ever started an episode.
Well, it's just interesting because like I don't know. God, you basically already said it, but like you know the difference between religion and relationship, of course, and I think. It's just scary because I feel like there's a lot of pressure if I were to go on like a strictly super religious podcast because I'm so imperfect, and it's like my story literally is just me screwing up so much in life, and then who's there to save me? It's the Lord, you know.
I feel I get kind of, I don't know if nervous is the right word, but I always am like, I'm always cautious of whatever I say about God because it's so important that I represent him correctly. I never want to be in... Dude, the truth is I fail at that every day. I fail at it every day, but I never want to be like how, like, someone who... They go, oh, that guy's a Christian, and here's him messing up, so therefore Christians are judgmental, or Christians are this or that. And that's why, like, it's generally something I don't bring up at first. I let someone get to know me for other traits, other aspects, and hopefully it's that I'm a loving person or that I'm doing inspiring things, and then they find out later, and I feel like it's like I earned the right to tell you about God.
For sure.
But I'm always failing. Like I'm never representing him at the highest level, and I think it's just something to strive for.
Yeah, of course. It's not like I think being a Christian creator is really hard. Like to put those two words together because there's such a pressure to be perfect when in reality, like we're all so imperfect. Yeah. That's why I also advertise myself like that.
Again, it's not relatable for most people.
Yeah, that's true.
I want to start off though, and with the money situation.
Yeah.
Can you take me back a couple days ago? I want Dude, the craziest things have happened to him with money.
Yeah.
Tell me about the pizza situation and the tax return and what happened when you drove down.
So weird because you were like, I mean, yeah, 2 days ago this didn't exist. Like,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. You were there. You were
I witnessed it, so I know it's real. So
that's crazy.
tell
So
the story.
yesterday, I'm leaving my, or no, 2 days ago, I'm leaving my friend's house that I was staying the night at to come down here to San Diego because I had to pick a friend up and then I was going to hang out with some people and then I had the church thing.
Yeah.
So that was Wednesday. And as I'm leaving the house, I'm like, oh, let me look at my bank account because I had to go get gas.
Yeah.
And I look at my bank account and like I open it and I just see a bunch of red
Yeah.
because I was late on a credit card payment, late on my car payment.
Yeah.
I look at my bank account, I have $40. I owe $1,500.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, this is awful. So I was like hardcore stressing, and just right there in that moment, I thought back to a time a few months ago where the last time I was stressed about money, and I just very clearly heard God say something along the lines of like, it is such a waste of time for you to worry right now.
Yeah.
So I thought back to that moment, and I was like, okay, God, I know I'm not supposed to worry. You know,
Yeah.
we read it in the Bible, and I've heard you tell me that. So in that moment, I was like, Lord, just please do something that shows me that it's all going to be okay, basically, which I know is so cheesy. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say that, but it feels like a cheesy thing to pray. But literally before I'm on the same street, like I'm just driving out of this neighborhood. So less than 2 minutes later, one of my roommates pays rent early.
Yeah.
And which is so random. Like it was only a day, 2 days early. Like it's
Yeah.
not the biggest deal, but like still, it was just like reminded me. I just like prayed, and
Yeah.
like 2 minutes later, someone pays rent, so I'm able to afford gas, which is just a huge blessing. But then later that night, I'm still stressed about money. That roommate's money doesn't go straight into my pocket. Like that has to help pay for the house too. So we I go to I come down here to San Diego. My friend that I picked up from the airport like bought me lunch and stuff, so that was a big blessing.
Yeah.
But then at night we go out for pizza and I'm starving, but
Yeah.
I can't afford very much. So
And let me put it in perspective. This place at closing hour, it's $2 slices of pizza.
yeah.
So you decide to buy one slice of pizza.
And I was a little hungry. Oh, there's a train.
I should have thought about
That's crazy.
every single episode I film. There's always some huge sound barrier that I forget to think about. Like I just set up my camera right next to a train.
You should do one right outside of LAX.
Oh, I did one on a roof in LA and so many
Oh
noises.
no, I bet. That's too funny.
But anyways, you buy this $2 slice of pizza. What happened?
So it was this pepperoni pizza, and I was so hungry, man, and it looked so good. He was like, and the guy was like, oh, this is the only piece of pepperoni we have left, so you got the last one. I was like, heck yeah. And then even afterwards, he was like, I love your energy, man. That like made my night. I was like,
Yeah.
that's so cool, thanks, bro. So I go to sit down with all you guys, and everyone else is getting their pizza, and I was like, okay, maybe pepperoni just takes longer to cook or something. I was a little confused, but finally, after about like 10 minutes, everyone's had their pizza for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And, I finally go up and I'm like, yo, I didn't get my pizza. I'm not upset at all. And they felt like so bad. And I literally was like, it was $2. Like,
Yeah.
And the girl was like, we can't refund cash. I'm so sorry. They felt so bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I like literally don't care. It's $2. And then she was like, next time you're here, drinks are on me. And I was like, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And then they gave me like a side. I don't even remember what it was.
Garlic naan.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, great. And then a few minutes later, she comes over with a gift card. She's like, here, this is the best I can do. I'm so sorry again. I hope we didn't upset you. And I'm like, oh, you're fine. What the heck? It was $2, like $2.16 or something. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I look at the gift card she hands me, and it was $20.
$20.
And I just like sat there, and I was like holding back tears because it's like that morning I didn't have enough money to get gas to drive. I couldn't have afforded lunch or dinner. I barely could pay for that $2 pizza. I had to use the cash that's like for emergencies. And I get a $20 gift card to this pizza place. Like, that was insane, man.
Yeah, so that was already crazy. It was like God instantly showed you a sign. But then you wake up the next morning. What happens?
So I wake up, and I'm with a couple friends. We were going to go to Walmart to film a TikTok, or like to get stuff to film a TikTok later.
Yeah.
And so we're like together, but we were going to drive separately because we were going to do this podcast yesterday.
Yeah.
But so I drove separately just in case.
My bad.
No, I don't care, bro. Yeah, he's the worst podcast host ever. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, that's a joke, I promise. But so I get in my car, and so it's like my first alone time of the day, and I just am sitting there, and I'm like, Lord, I know this is like silly and kind of meaningless, and I literally said the words. I was like, I don't ever want to use God as like a genie.
Yeah.
But I was praying, and I was like, God, I pray that you do today similar things as what you did yesterday. Like, show me that you're here. I know that seems so silly. Like, I know he's there, but sometimes we just say those prayers. Like, it wasn't a thing of doubt, but it was just like, I don't know. And I know that's kind of a selfish prayer, low key, but I start driving, and about 5 minutes later, I get this email from my accountant. And I knew this email was coming because, ironically, flashed back to when I said, like, a few months ago, I was worrying about money, and God said, don't worry. Literally 2 minutes after that, I get a text from Mom that's like, hey, we got to figure out some tax stuff. It looks like some stuff went wrong a couple years ago. And in that moment, I was like, after God told me not to worry 3 months ago, I was like, oh, that's so cool. But so I knew I was going to be getting like a few $100s back or something. Yeah. So in that moment, I was like, oh, that's so awesome. But finally, yesterday is when I found out more about it. So I get an email from my accountant, and I thought at most, like, in the perfect world, I was thinking maybe I'd get $2,000 from tax returns and stuff. And like, I even told my mom that back a couple months ago. I was like, I'd love it if I could get like a couple grand. That would really just like, that would help so much. And she was like, don't get your hopes up. If anything, it'll be a few hundred. Maybe you won't even get anything. Maybe it'll like break even. Yeah. So I was trying not to get my hopes up, but I just remembered back to God telling me not to worry. So I was like, it's got to be something. Yeah. So yesterday I get this email, and I open it, and it was the craziest thing I've seen in my entire life. It was about $4,000 that the IRS owes me that I'm going to be getting the next week or so. And I just started bawling my eyes out in my car, man. I get to Walmart with my friends, and they were like, have you been crying? Are you okay, bro? And I got to tell them. And they were not Christians. So that's just a super cool thing. Like, yeah, what is this? Does that seem like coincidence to them? I guess that's coincidence to a non-Christian, but like, I know exactly what that really is, you know?
I mean, bro, that's crazy. And I want to recap the story fast because you were telling all the details, but it was like, can I mention where you're living?
Of course, yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
totally good.
At this moment, he's living out of his car.
That's correct, yeah.
And so living out of his car, he's $1,500 because he's in debt. He owes money because he didn't pay his rent. He didn't pay his car payment. And then all of a sudden, first thing that happens, his roommate pays him early, $1,000 rent. Yep. Then he can't even afford dinner. He buys a $2 slice of pizza, and they mess up, and they give him $20 gift card. So it's like dinner for the next couple of days.
Yeah, for real.
And then he wakes up. Next day, he gets an email. The IRS says, we owe you $4,000. So you went from like in debt $1,000 to like profiting $3,000. And you didn't do any work. It was literally like just, God was just like, hey, like I feel like I think that God really reads our hearts. And I think that he knew that, like he said, you trust me and you listened. And that was just like it was really inspiring for me to hear. I'm a Christian. That was just like a super cool story.
Yeah, it's crazy because like I've always heard those stories, but I don't really think I've ever witnessed it to that extent. Yeah. But like, because I've never been that worried about money. Like I've definitely had trials before, but like the last week has been like the most worried I've been about money. I'm supposed to be, but you know, I keep coming back to the Lord. But like finally yesterday, I think I saw the fruit from that. Like you were saying.
Wow. I want to transition into a much darker topic, but I think I wanted to put this early in the podcast because I know that if someone's clicking on and they're listening, that like I want to make sure this is something they hear. Can you take me back to when you were considering suicide?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about this.
No. I love it. I love this conversation because exactly what you said. Like, I think it's not talked about enough, and I think there's people that want to hear that. And I need to hear it. Yeah?
I want to say that when I was designing the order of this podcast, I was thinking to put this last. It's like you work up to it, we get comfortable with each other, and then you talk about it. But I think that it's probably one of the most important things you'll say, and that's why I want to put it soon, because there's a drop off the listeners. Yeah. So take me back to, how did you get to a place where you were considering suicide or making an attempt on suicide?
Yeah. So I don't even know where to start, honestly. Like, life has been very strange sometimes. Yeah. But I mean, long story short, like I grew up with pretty normal life. I don't know. Like my family was like fine financially. I never met my dad, so my mom married my stepdad when I was like 5. Yeah. And I have like 4 siblings. Like everything was pretty normal. It was very basic until like I think when I was like 21 or 22. So like this was like a year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Just like it seems like everything kind of came down at once.
Yeah.
I started really doubting the existence of God. There was like a lot of issues with friends of mine, a lot of issues with my family. Like my ex-girlfriend's family was going through a divorce, and that was really rough for me because they were like my second family.
Yeah.
My family like started struggling, my parents. And there's like a lot also, it's also hard like talking about this because there's so much that I just can't share because it's not me. It was like an outside source that happened. So it, like sometimes it probably sounds like when I'm talking about it with friends, it probably sounds like I'm being dramatic, but like fair.
I want to touch on something though, is that a lot of depressed people or people who have problems, they think that their situation is not worthy of depression. They say like, oh, this kid had his mom die and he's depressed, and I'm sitting here and my ex-girlfriend's parents got a divorce and I'm depressed. And they're comparing themselves, and it makes them more depressed.
It's so bad.
They feel like I don't deserve to feel this way, and it makes them feel even more hopeless, even more.
That's so true. And that is such like that. I think the root of that, or the thing we need to remember, is that depression isn't like, if you think of like sadness or happiness, generally like we get sad or happy based on something happening. Like, okay, I walk outside and it's sunny out, it's nice weather. For that moment, I'm happy. Or my dog just died. For that moment, I'm sad. Like those emotions like come from events. But things like depression and anxiety, because I was diagnosed with both of those about a year and a half ago. Like we have to understand that they're not necessarily caused by anything. Sometimes it can be, of course, like you're saying, oh, this person's mom just died.
I would say, actually, I like that you brought that up, because I like to compare sadness and depression a lot, because I think a lot of people don't know the difference. And you can correct me or give me your opinion when I say this. The way I see sadness as a very good thing. To me, sadness is the absence of something good. So like when I get sad is when I lose something good. So maybe that means I go off to college and therefore I have to leave a bunch of my friends. Maybe that means my dog dies. So I had something good, this best friend that was my dog, and it left. And I think that almost all moments of sadness are something good departing. Whereas I think depression is synonymous with hopelessness. It's like
that's good.
Feeling like you have no purpose, no reason, and that doesn't always come because of an event. It's like a perspective thing. And I think you were kind of saying the same thing. You were saying like event and perspective. And I think that if you are someone who has depression, it's always going to be worse if you try to like justify it. If you're like, oh, I don't deserve to feel this bad, or like my situation compared to someone else's. It's not about that. It's all about your perspective. It's on the inside.
That's so true. And that's funny that you use that example, because at this time I was going through this depression. I was reconnected with, like, the Lord actually did this. I was at a football game, and he like urged me to message one of my friends from high school whose dad had passed away. So I messaged her, and like the next day we had gotten coffee, and like I remember just like talking with her. I'm like, her dad, he was a single father, and then she was an only child. Like she lost her everything. And here I am depressed because I missed my car payment and I might have to sell my dream car. Like it seems so weird to me. And that comparison is so bad.
That's so funny you say that, because I had a best friend in high school who studied abroad from Spain, and he was in... There's a helicopter here.
We're right by the military base.
I want to let the helicopter pass before I say what I'm going to say.
It just comes closer to us, lands right behind us.
Yeah, that'd be funny. But I was in high school. I had a friend who studied abroad at my high school, and 8 months into his study abroad, so he hadn't seen his dad in 8 months. His dad died. And I remember he had to fly home all the way to Spain for the funeral, and then he had to fly back all the way to US because he had to finish his academic year here. And I remember just thinking, like, he's going to be so depressed, and I'm going to have to be there for him every day, and like I'm ready to do it, but like, and I thought that like kind of our good times together were over. I was like, there's no way he's going to be able to have good times, like his dad just died. But when he came back, like, I'm not saying like internally he was fine. I don't want to speak on what he was feeling, but like after he came back, we laughed together, we cried together, we did things, and it really opened my eyes because I was like, and I don't think the comparison's good, but to me, it was something that really helped me beat my own depression. It was like watching the way he handled his situation was just so inspiring to me. But I also think that it can go both ways. Like if you compare yourself, you see like I'm unworthy to feel depressed, then it's just going to get worse and worse. And I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because we kind of had a very similar situation, but I saw it in like an inspirational term, and you kind of saw it in like a. That feels bad. I don't want to say like I handled it better.
No, for sure. I will say that. Like,
yeah.
I think exactly like you said. I think we feel so alone, and we feel like we don't deserve to feel this, or like I'm not allowed to be depressed because my life is perfect.
Yeah.
And that was the interesting thing is my depression actually really started before anything bad happened.
Yeah.
And that was a very interesting thing to me. Like I had everything. I should have had everything. That's really what happened.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't talk about it too much because I don't like bragging, but like I had bought my house and I had bought my Tesla, my dream car. I had everything, but I was so unhappy.
Yeah.
And then because of that depression, I stopped working as much because I had started a business. And here's actually like a little interesting story. I started my business one day, and I used like I officially started my business. Like I got my LLC or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I'd already been kind of.
What was your business?
It was a marketing business.
Okay.
I hated it so much. But it was not for me. It was not for me.
Yeah.
But so I did that, and I used like my final funds to do that because I was like, okay, I'll make this money back. Great.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I didn't have very much money left because I had just bought a ton of crap because I don't know, I was depressed. It was like a weird spiral downward. But that night I got pulled over in the Tesla. I was going 90 in a 45. And so the guy is like, the cop comes over and he's super nice, but he takes my stuff, and I'm like, okay, God, please let the ticket be under 150 because I think that's all I have right now. I'll make the money back, yeah, whatever, but 150 is like the maximum I want it to be. He comes back and it's a $350 ticket.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no. So after he gives me the ticket, I like holding back tears because I was like, oh, that sucks. Like, yeah, I know it's going to be okay, but that sucks. So I asked him, I was just curious because I was really struggling with depression at this time. I was like, what's your, I don't remember what I said. I basically asked, I actually have this on my YouTube. I recorded it with my dash cam, so I put the video out there, but I asked him, like, if he was a Christian, if he believed in the Lord. And he was like, yeah, I love Jesus. You know, I have a great relationship. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And we talked for a couple minutes, whatever. And that video is on YouTube. And like all my friends were, I don't know why I posted that. It was like,
I mean, that's cool.
Publicly showing that I was depressed, even though I don't even talk to my friends about it. But what no one, I mean, my close friends know, I don't know why I haven't like made a video about this, is about a month later, you know, I paid the ticket. I get something back in the mail. And this is crazy, man. This was January of 2022. It's like a year and a half ago. So I paid the ticket, but I get something back in the mail from them. And I was like, crap, did I not pay enough, or did the payment get declined or something? And they sent the check back because that cop, like, he canceled it out.
He canceled it out?
He canceled the ticket.
Wow.
So there's a video on YouTube where it's like me like crying because I'm getting a ticket and asking the cop, are you happy in your life? Like, and then that cop like canceled that ticket. And like, I always think back to that moment because it's such a small thing that for some reason, like, that changed everything. Because like that, I don't know, it was just one of the weirdest things. How does that happen? Who does that?
I feel like you've had a lot of like moments with God. Like it's funny because you said like you felt like before this money thing you didn't, but that feels like such like a,
I guess, I think we forget stuff too.
You know what's an interesting thing, and I don't know if this is a good comparison, but yesterday I went to Chipotle with my brother, and I told, every time I go to Chipotle at nighttime, there's some little high schoolers working the night shift. It's always little high schoolers. And I literally told my brother before he got in line, I said, watch, I'm going to have a good conversation with this guy, and he's going to give me like a triple scuba chicken. And I have like an 80% success rate. And I go in there, and it was like a master class. I'm like, what's your name? He's like, Rocky. And I'm like, oh, Rocky, like the boxer? That's such a cool name. And we start chatting it up. By the time we get to the chicken, this guy gives me like 4 scoops, bro. I didn't ask for extra chicken. We finish, and my brother's sitting there like mouth open. And I talk to him, and we get down, we sit down, and he's like, damn, I got to do what you do. And I told him, you know how many people go through that line every day and they don't even ask his name? They don't even care to ask his name. And I sat there and had a 15-second conversation with him, and look how it paid back on me. And I guess the point I was gonna say is like, it's the same thing I feel almost with the cop is like, you know how many people get a ticket and they sit there all upset and they're just like, my day's ruined, and like they don't want to start a conversation, and you went to like ask him something like he cared about his religion, his thing is like you, and I guess the point here is it's all about like making actions memorable, especially for people who are in like mundane jobs where they do the same thing every day and no one ever acknowledges them. And it's like literally by just asking someone's name and having a 20-second conversation, you might be the most memorable like interaction in that person's whole shift. And it always, like, I feel like I've seen in my life where it always pays.
For sure.
Yeah.
Even if we don't see the fruit of that, like, even if you don't say the name of Jesus or anything, like, just that, like, to be a light in someone's day, I think that's the most important thing we as humans can do.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's not for everyone. I think there's some personalities that struggle with that more.
Like, you don't do it. I mean, I was kind of just saying, like, I did it for the extra chicken, but, like, I think it's like a heart thing. It's not like you're doing it expecting rewards, but, like, I'm just saying because I've like, created a memory is, like, kind of my catchphrase. And so I try to be someone who makes memorable actions, and, like, it's always, like, paid off. Even though it's not like I'm doing it to, like, for a payoff. It always just pays off.
Yeah. I think, like, the Lord knows where your heart is with stuff like that. It's like, if in my scenario, if I were talking to him just because I wanted him to take off my ticket, like, I think naturally I wouldn't have been as nice about it. But because I didn't care about that. I wanted someone to talk to, and I was curious about his life. Like, I think the Lord blessed that that authenticity, I feel like.
I mean, that's true, but so let's go. Keep going on the story.
Sorry. Okay. So this time of my life, so that was January of 2022, and I was just so depressed. And it was about March of last year, that like kind of stuff actually started happening. Because like before this, it was like I was depressed for no reason. Then slowly, like, things started happening. I started my business, and I just like stopped working as much because I was lazy. But the reason I was lazy is because I was like so depressed all the time. I didn't want to go to work. I couldn't wake up in the morning. So because of that, then money started kind of being tight, and like money started to be an issue, like around this time in January. And so once I get to March, I'm trying to think of the order of all this, but that's when, actually it was February, stuff started happening with somebody that I'm very close to in my life that attempted suicide, and it was in the hospital. And that was probably the most difficult time in my life, was when this person, this really good friend of mine, was in the hospital. It was in that moment, you don't see the end. You don't know what's going to happen. Every single time that they were out of the hospital, I was like, what if today is the last day I ever get to talk to them? Like, that was so rough. And that was, I think, like the big turning point to where the depression just got worse and worse. 'Cause after that, stuff came out with, it's so hard to like be vague about this. I don't know, like, you know, but there was another family friend of mine that it came out was having an affair for a long time. And it was a very, very close family friend. And that was insanely rough for me, even though it shouldn't have affected my life. That was the weird thing. Like, it shouldn't have affected me, but it did. It just ate at me.
I don't think you need to say that it shouldn't have affected you.
I feel like sometimes I wonder if this happened today where I'm at with my walk with the Lord. I wonder how it would affect me now. I don't want to know. I don't want to know, God, please, no. But I just am curious. I know I would handle it a lot better. I think if right now everything that happened to me last year happened, I don't think I would be affected very much. And that, I don't know how true that is, but that's how I feel.
I know, I understand what you say. I mean, I agree with you. When you have the Lord, it's so much easier to face. I think there's literally a Bible verse that says like when I have troubles, persecutions, or like trials and tribulations in Christ, it's like I rejoice, and it says like, for when I am weak, I am strong. And the idea is that like a lot of people, when life is going really good for them, they're not willing to consider God. They kind of see it as like their own win. Like, I got myself in this position, I'm winning at life, I don't need God. And a lot of people, when they're on their freaking deathbed, when they're in their lowest low, they're the saddest sad, it's kind of just like, they're like, you know what? I'll consider God. This is all, like, it's this or death, or it's this or depression. And so they open their heart. And that's why with that Bible verse is, for when I am weak, when I have troubles, when I have persecutions, when I have trials and tribulations, for when I am weak, I'm strong. Is because when you're weak in life, you're strong in relationship with God.
Yeah.
And I think that God lets you have more, the more you can take that mentality and apply it to gratitude as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm grateful for the $20 pizza card. So now you're going to get a $4,000 check tomorrow. And who knows, next week or next month, and train is coming again.
Woo, train.
Yeah, so
that's so true. It also kind of goes back to what you're saying, like, when you're sad, when you feel sadness, and I actually saw this in South Park, in a South Park episode. Don't watch South Park. It's so inappropriate. Terrible
there's
show.
some funny moments.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
ChatGPT.
I know, that one was so funny.
I didn't see it, but
I see them on TikTok so much.
Yeah.
There was this scene from South Park that I saw that, like, it made me start bawling my eyes out because it felt so real to me. Was one of the kids was like, he had gone through a breakup or something, and all these goth kids come to him and are like, oh, are you ready to join our sad kid club? Like, we're all so sad and depressed. Come hang out with us. He was like, and he's crying there, and he's like, no, because I feel this sadness means that I have previously felt something that's so much better than this, and in the future I will feel something so much better than this. So it's like, because of that low point, you're able to enjoy the other parts. So I think the only reason I'm able to say now that I would handle that stuff last year so much better is because I went through it. Like, if I didn't go through that, oh gosh, I wouldn't even be able to handle, like, if I didn't go through that, how would I live in California with $40 in my bank account? Like, there's no, you have to go through stuff, I think, to grow as a person.
I mean, I 100% agree. There's so many examples of this. I mean, like, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of biblical verses as well, but it's the truth. I kind of had a majority of my struggles and depression and stuff in high school, and in the moment, it felt like the worst thing. Like, I would be like, damn, like, everyone's so much more popular than me and so much more, like, whatever than me. And now, a lot of the kids I used to look up to, like, I look at them now, and they're facing loneliness for the first time. They're facing these things, and they are not, I can see that they're not as equipped because they're just now facing it. And I'm always grateful that a lot of my problems were more when I was young.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I'm not going to have problems in the future, but it's like,
you're going to handle it better now for sure because of what you've gone through. No, that I totally agree with that. So sorry, I'm so bad at, like,
no, it's fine. I think it's good to tell it slow.
So this was all happening. So, like, I was depressed, and then things started happening that almost made it make sense that I was depressed. But because of that, things just got worse. Like, an affair from someone close to me, a divorce going on, like, a friend of mine attempting suicide, like, multiple times, being in the hospital. Like, it was all just so rough. And then at this time, I was debating on whether or not I should talk about this, but, like, I got a girlfriend. And I think, like, she came into my life. We're not together anymore, but, like, I think she came into my life at the most perfect time. And it's funny because during that time, like, while we were dating, I was like, man, I wish she was with me, last year or a year from now when I'm not depressed. But now looking back, it's like, holy crap. Like, I cannot even explain how thankful I am for the exact day that I met her. I literally met this girl 2 days after the friend of mine attempted suicide for the first time. 2 days later, I meet this girl, and the first time her and I actually hung out was when my friend was in the hospital, and I was really struggling, and she, like, brought me food or something. My girlfriend, we weren't dating. She brought me food, and we just talked, and it was like she cared about me so much. And I see now that, like, she was a blessing from the Lord at that time in my life, which is something that I'm insanely thankful for. So that happened, but it was interesting. Like, we hear all these love songs that are like, all you need is love. Like, just, once you fall in love, it fixes everything. No, it doesn't. Like, although my girlfriend was definitely, like, heaven sent, I believe, it didn't fix everything. Because, and that's
And it probably fills that narrative of going back to like comparison, where it's like, oh, now I have this girlfriend, but it still didn't feel me, so like feeds in that hopelessness.
Yes.
It's like I got something I always wanted, and it still didn't feel me. It's like makes you even
happy right
more
now.
hopeless.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
And that's not to say, like, I'm sure like you said, it's heaven sent. You look back and you like, I'm sure that person did so much for you and they did help you, but I think it also plays into that narrative.
Yeah, I think she's the reason I'm here, literally like alive, I think now. But that doesn't mean that I didn't still go through stuff. 'Cause, like, after that happened, there was still stuff happening. I remember the day after my birthday, I got a call from my mom that said that a different super close family friend of ours, like husband or boyfriend and girlfriend, they were older, fiance, I don't know, whatever, they were together, turned out they were in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Sentence makes any sense at all. So like the day after my birthday, like I'm with my friends and I get a call that like someone that I look up to so much is abusing his fiance.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh crap, like that hit me so hard. And then there were other things that now like are so small compared to like some of the other stuff that was happening. But I think I'm actually kind of glad I can't even think of everything that happened. But like I guess the point at the end of the day is that stuff was happening now. It was like the reason I was depressed. And I think at some point around March of last year is when I like fully fell away from God. And I spent that summer, I would say, like an atheist.
Yeah.
I made a rule for myself where it was like, I'm not going to do anything that I wouldn't do as a Christian. I didn't necessarily keep that, but I think it was good that I set that for myself.
Yeah.
And so I spent that summer, the funniest thing, my only real memory from the summer is the amount of times I would sit in my room and complain, whether it's like, you know, on the phone with my girlfriend or just like to myself or to some of my closer friends or my family. I would just complain about how terrible my friends were, how terrible all these people around me in my life were. They're all fake friends. No one even cares about me. And it's like looking back, I remember we were talking about this the other night. It's like now looking back, it's so embarrassing, but I was the one that was being fake. How can I sit in my room complaining, talking trash on all my friends, saying that they're fake friends?
Bro, but that's such a, like, I had the exact same thing when I was depressed. I felt all my friends are fake. It's funny that you say that. And I think it's such a, you have this narrative in your head, and the narrative is I'm depressed, and you use everything to like fill that narrative. So it's like your friends, like, oh no, you blame it all on other people, and you like, I had that exact same thing, and I strongly believe, as far as friendships and relationships, that and we'll get into this later. I actually do have a question about this, but I'll mention it now, is that like, it's not finding the right friends or finding the right girlfriend, it's being the right person, and you will attract, like, you attract people. And it's not to say that you can't end up in a toxic relationship or that everyone you attract is going to be exactly the same, but for the most part, every successful person I've ever met says, like, who you are and your values are the people you're going to attract. And generally, if you're like, and this is a really like depressed thing, but generally, if you're complaining about all the people around you, you're finding all these flaws in them, they're probably the same flaws you have in yourself.
Yep. That's so true. Like, and I couldn't see it in that moment. And that's not to like talk trash on my previous self, but like, it's just, I wish instead of sitting there complaining about them, I just would have told them, like, I was like mad that no one reached out to me, like asking how I was really doing. But it's like, bro, I didn't say anything to them. You know how easy to text someone, just be like, yo, can you be praying for me, man? I'm struggling. Yeah. But
I mean, that's such a good point, though, is you feel like people owe you something. It's like, and you watch other person, you're like, well, he texted Kyle, but he doesn't text me, so he loves Kyle more than me, and they must not like me. And like, I know, I've been down those exact rabbit holes.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so, and it's like, it only makes it worse. There's no, even if everything that you're saying is true, it doesn't make it any better.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing too, is it doesn't matter if it's true or not true, because by believing it, you're already feeling all the effects.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter.
True. That's so true.
You might as well assume all your friends like you, because even if they don't, like, I say the same thing about people who are super worried about their girlfriend cheating. It's like, if you're spending all your time thinking your girlfriend's cheating, it doesn't even matter if they aren't,
Wow.
because you're already feeling the effects as if they were.
Crazy.
So, like,
you already have like the outcome. Like,
yeah, it's like you're living it. You've already been cheated on by yourself. Like, you convinced
in your
yourself.
mind.
So it's like,
That's interesting to hear it like that.
you might as well,
So true.
unless you're at the point where like, I'm going to take this person out of my life, you might as well just assume the best of everyone, because by thinking the worst, you were like creating that reality for yourself.
Wow. That is so true. Yeah, that's the perfect way to kind of explain like what my summer was like last year, because like all my friends were going out having fun. They would invite me to places and I would still sit back and complain about how I felt like I wasn't invited. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Or they invited you last, or they texted you outside the group chat.
Right.
And here's the thing is, the truth is, you were probably right. And you know why you were right is because your thoughts manifest. And so when you think that everyone doesn't like you, you are literally making that a reality. And you become the kid who's always like, oh, you guys don't care about me? And so they're more like, why is our best friend asking me if you don't care about me? And you start to become annoying, and you start to, you fulfill the reality you have in your head.
If I go to play volleyball with my friends, 'cause that's something we did a lot in Nebraska, like, I'd go play volleyball, but I'm sitting like on the sidelines just thinking like, man, no one actually likes me here. Like, I'm not going to talk to them like I would if we were friends. So like, the way I treat them because I think they don't like me, of course they're not going to like me because
you're not fun. You're sitting in the corner like this, wanting them. And but you know what is awesome is that like what makes me sad is that there's still people that haven't realized this. And I hope that you realizing it and sitting here, I don't hope that any of my listeners are struggling with this, but I hope that if someone is, that they know they're hearing it and it's really breaking barriers.
Sure. Yeah, I really like the way you put that into perspective. Like, just imagine that everyone that you talk to loves you, because the way that you'll treat them, knowing that they love you, like, I think they'll love you.
Yeah.
If you just be yourself.
You'll make the reality, because like, I mean, most people believe in manifesting, and it's you're gonna make the reality based on your thoughts, but also it doesn't even matter about making the reality if it's true or not true, because it's for yourself. So you're making it like it's for yourself. I don't know. I mean, I think I explained it better earlier, but
no, you did perfect with that. That was very
let's keep moving though.
Yeah. I think now it's finally come to an end. So like all this stuff was happening in my life, and it's not like things just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, there were good things, of course. Like, again, like a girlfriend. Like, that to have someone that I'm that close with is a huge blessing for sure. And I did have a couple like super close friends that were really with me through that. And looking back on it now, I wouldn't change a thing. As sad as that is. I mean, no, like,
I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, but like we were talking about this on the walk down here, actually. Like, if none of that happened, I wouldn't be in California. And I kind of get into more of that.
But also just like the perspective you have, and like even me, the reason I can sit and like explain your thoughts is because I've had a lot of them. And the truth is, I would way rather have them and know how to handle them and deal with it young than like run into these things later. Because no one goes through life untouched. Like, everyone's going to struggle. Everyone's going to do it. And it, like, having perspective is the most, I think it's just like one of the most important things.
I remember the point in my life where I just like, I thought I did not see a future where anything was ever going to be good.
Yeah.
And being out here, it's crazy. Like, I can't even put into words. Like, if someone hasn't experienced it, they will never understand what that is like, to be sitting there like just having, like, it's not like I thought there was no future. It's like in that moment of my life, I knew there was no future. And I can remember 3 specific times where this happened. Maybe it was 2, but like 2 or 3 times where it was just like the lowest I've ever been. Like, there was no future. Nothing good was ever going to happen. I was convinced. I was 100% sure that was the case.
Yeah.
One of the times, like, one of my roommates, I don't remember. This was like after summer. Because I had been diagnosed with ADHD, depression, anxiety. And I remember that I was sitting in the hospital, and the doctor comes in. Yeah, you have these 3 things. Here's the medicine you're gonna be taking. He walks out to go grab something, and I just start crying. And I'm sitting in the hospital crying in the doctor's office, and I would just like look out the window, and I can remember like the way that the building was shaped and stuff. I just saw like a little sliver of sky right there, and I just looked right up there, and I was like, why are you doing this to me? That's what I said to God, even though in that moment, like I didn't necessarily believe in God. Like I just was crying, and I was cursing God because I felt like he was doing this to me. And like that happened. I was taking the medicine that I prescribed, that was prescribed to me, and I think like a week later I went to my roommate's room, and he doesn't know this, so I hope he doesn't watch this. I should tell him at some point. I kind of feel bad, but like I searched. I knew he had I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but weapons that could end things. So I went through his room and I looked everywhere because he was my roommate. He was my friend and my roommate. And I searched everywhere for his guns, and I don't know how, because I knew he had a bunch. I could not find them. It's not like I just like looked and was like, oh, okay, I can't find that. I looked for them. I looked, and I could not find it. And right after that, I just felt like an urge in my heart. Now, looking back, I really believe it was the Lord, but I felt like I needed to call the doctor and tell him that the medicine was not working. So I called him, told him kind of what I was feeling. He was like, okay, come in right now. Like, we're going to get this figured out. So they got me on a different medicine. And then flash forward a little bit, like a few months later, I was taking this new medicine, and this isn't, I guess, a huge deal in the story, but I had broken up with my girlfriend because, well, we just broke up because I was a terrible boyfriend, because I was depressed. It's kind of hard to be the best boyfriend when all I'm thinking about is my own life and stuff. So we had broken up, and then I felt like at that moment it was because of the medicine that was like making me this person that I was. So I stopped taking any of the medicine after that, and that was like a kind of a turning point. It wasn't the solution though, but that was a good turning point.
I want to say something about medicine, these kind of medicines. I've never taken them, therefore I don't want to speak on how well they work or don't work, but I do want to go back to that story in your head. When you're depressed, you have this story. With what their stories, I'm depressed, I have no will to live. And everything goes to fill that narrative. So you convince yourself your friends don't like you. You convince yourself that you're the reason your relationship didn't work. And when someone hands you a pill and they say, this fixes your depression, whether or not, I don't know what it does in your brain chemically. I'm not a scientist. But I do know that is another huge piece of evidence that you are who you think you are. It's, I'm depressed and I need help. And then someone goes, here is your thing that you need because you have depression. And it's like, it's another thing to just fill the narrative. And I think it's one of the worst things to fill the narrative, because it's not a one-time thing. It's every day you pick it up and you're reminding yourself, I'm looking at this pill bottle, and this is a reminder that I am who I say I am, and that is depressed. And you look at this pill bottle, every day you take it, it's a reminder to fill the narrative in your head. And that's why I'm really anti
medication,
those drugs for depression and anxiety and stuff.
Yeah. I think what's scary is like, I also like, I didn't like when people were like, Jaydon, you shouldn't be taking that medicine. Like, it goes against the Bible. Cause like there were times where I felt like it was helping me. Now looking back, now I don't do any of that. Like the Adderall and stuff, I got rid of all that. But I think for a certain person in a certain time of life, I think it can be helpful. But also there's so many different types of medicine. Another scary thing is when you're prescribed the wrong one, which is what happened to me the first time. I'm pretty sure. I think it was a little deeper than that. Like I think there was definitely some demonic stuff going on there as well. But I think it's also for everyone. Yeah.
I also respect that you say that, because again, I'm not a doctor. I've not taken the medicine. It's not my place to deem it good or bad. And I appreciate that you stood and you say there is a place.
Yeah. It's just not for me. And I don't think I went to church one time and there was a psychologist speaking at our church, and it shifted my mindset on this, but he was like, if you hurt your leg, if you just, hurt your leg a little bit, you might take some Tylenol or something, make it feel better. If you break your leg, they'll put you on like some heavier pain meds or whatever. Like, and so he was explaining it like that. I'm like, hey, where is this going? It's so interesting. And he explained like mental health the same way to an extent. Everyone is going to have some pains emotionally, some happy, sad feelings. So not every time are you going to need medication for that, but there's certain times where I think it's good to get on medicine if it's like if you broke your leg. Like when I was literally gonna end my life, I think there was a time where
That's a really fair point.
And I don't know how to word that. Like, I'm definitely not wording that.
I get what you're saying. Is like,
Yeah, neither of us are doctors, so.
but I think the same thing goes as far as like exercise. Is like, why do you think meditation is becoming so popular? It's like, you exercise every part of your body, and not only is meditation becoming popular, but breathing exercise are becoming popular. And the idea is that like, we call it mental health, but we don't treat it like how we treat the rest of our physical health, which is that like,
very true.
It's like, well, you're gonna work out to lose weight, you're gonna hit legs to every part of your muscle, but your most important your brain, which is your most important organ, and your lungs, which is the muscle that never stops going from your birth to your death. People like a lot of people just ignore them. They're just like, oh, they just work on their own, but they need to be trained in I do think meditation, and that's good. A lot of Christians say like they see meditation as this like woo woo like, and I do think it can be that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But like it's also prayer. Prayer is meditation.
Prayer is meditation.
Prayer is meditation.
Yeah.
So is and I believe in breathing techniques and stuff too. I believe they say people with trauma and people who are struggling, they breathe really shallowly. They breathe.
That's interesting.
But people who are able to breathe into their bellies and breathe deeper, and I mean, you see, you've probably heard Wim Hof. I'm almost positive Wim Hof, the Iceman, like he's like the most famous breather. I'm pretty sure his wife committed suicide, and that's why he
no way, interesting.
That's why he became this like breathing person. It really like helped him.
Yeah, I remember like during summer when I was really struggling, one of my best friends taught me how to breathe, which seems so silly in the moment. I almost like made fun of it. But once I now I think about it dang near every single day. It's like anytime, you know, I feel a little bit of stress, I'm like, oh, there we go. Got to breathe out of my stomach. And I believe that like
it's
there are
true.
real world solutions. Like God created the entire universe. God created our bodies.
Yeah.
Like there are people. Oh, this is actually, I think, a good example of it. I know you've heard this parable where it's like, or it's just like a fake story where it's like a guy who got in a shipwreck or something, or a flood. He's in a flood and like, he's like on this piece of wood and he's praying and he's like, you know what? I know that God has me. God's going to take care of me. So a boat comes by to pick him up and they're like, hey, do you need help? We can pick you up. He's like, no, God's got me. I'm fine. So that boat leaves. Another boat comes. Hey, yo, are you good, bro? You look like you're about to die. He's like, nope, God has me. That boat leaves. The third boat comes. And then at the end of the story, he drowns because God sent 3 boats to him and he said no. I think breathing exercises and exercising and all these mental things, it's like God gave us the opportunity to look at Earth, man. Look at what we have.
Well, that's such a good thing you brought up, because it's like, I feel like no one, I get in that myself where I'm like I want things from God, or I'm praying about things, and then I'm like, well, like sometimes I feel like God can't use something. It's like, because a podcast can end up making me money, can end up being views and likes. Well, God could never use it for my good. But that's like, I think that's a narrative of the enemy. It's like, there's nothing that says God created things, and I say that there's no career that's untouchable by God. Like, God can work his way into music, into podcasting, and whatever. There's nothing, and there's no solution that's untouchable. I mean, there's times in the Bible where people had leprosy and they're like, go jump in that river 10 miles away 3 times, and they do it and they're healed. And it's like I think that's interesting. And I do tend to believe that the things that are best for us in our bodies are the God things. So it's like breathing is within your ability. It's not a drug.
I think
true. The food you eat, it's like God made food. He made the plants and the animals. I think like the water, it's like God made water. And I generally tend to think that like exercise, it's like within our ability, that
exactly.
God made it for like, it's not like this inaccessible thing.
God made our bodies so that when we work out we feel better and we get stronger and these things.
And of course there's always like, I have access to cleaner water than some kids in Africa or something. Like there's always advantages and disadvantages, but I think that God was very intentional with medicine and stuff.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's almost like our ego. It's funny, our own ego gets in the way of God's work because we keep saying like, God doesn't want me to do that, like without actually like asking or thinking about like how we were made and stuff. I think that is an ego thing, and I definitely. It's funny, like I haven't necessarily struggled with like ego problems. Like I walk into a room and I'm like, oh, I'm better than everyone here. But I've struggled with ego problems in the sense that like, man, I don't need this.
It's like pride. I feel like.
Pride, exactly. Yeah, that was something I always was like, I'm not prideful. I'd read the Bible and it's like, oh, I'm not prideful. I don't struggle with these things. But like when I think about it like that, I was so prideful. It's like I don't need X, Y, or Z to make me feel better. Like I can do this on my own. I
feel like I have a lot of I'm trying to identify those areas as well. I've definitely struggled with ego and pride, but I think I have a lot of pride with like asking my parents for help, because as a YouTuber and a podcaster, it's like a lot of these creative fields are like fields that our parents don't understand. So they want you to go to school and get a degree, and you have this pride of like, I'm going to prove them wrong. Or I'm going to prove the girl at my school wrong. And I realize like that's the worst motivation.
So bad, no.
Because it's what it's really coming from is an internal of not being enough.
Yeah,
and you think that by proving your parents or proving this girl or your friends, it's going to fill that hole.
Yeah.
And I've listened to enough success stories to know that it won't.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I haven't had to figure that out myself.
Yep. I had to figure that out after moving out here to California. Like that was very recent that kind of became a thing in my life, because there was a bit, it was like, it's secretly an insecurity. That's an insecurity in myself. When I moved to California and I'm like, man, all these people are saying I'm not going to make it. I'm going to make it to prove them wrong. But like really, that's an insecurity in myself.
Yeah.
I don't think, there's not 100% of me that thinks I'm going to make it.
I've been thinking about this a lot too, is like success in terms of inside metrics versus outside metrics. So if you think of success in terms of outside metric, like say you're posting something, that means all your success is determined after you've already done the work. So like, let's say I post a podcast. If my success is in outside metrics, that means that the second I hit the post button, I do not know if I'm successful yet. It depends on what comes after. It means I'm focused. How much money did I make? How much views, likes, streams did I get? How did society take it? Did my parents praise me for it? Did my friends praise me for it? I'm waiting on all those success metrics. And I think that if you want to be happy in creative work, you should know by the second you hit the post button if you're successful. Yeah. So you change it to inside metrics, which are, did I enjoy the process? Wow, so I know that if this podcast gets 0 views, I know that right now in this moment, I'm freaking enjoying it. And therefore, I'm successful. Other things, did it align with my values? Like, I'm sitting here, I'm talking about my religion, I'm having a great conversation with you talking about depression, mental health. I know that this is something I'm proud to live on the internet. And I know that now. I don't need to post it to know it. And then, like, aligns with my values. There was one, and then I said made me feel something. Is a lot of people operate on the sense that they're, like, trying to figure out what the audience is going to like. They're like, oh, I am making something that, and I heard this really good quote on art. It basically says, like, if you're making art that you don't like, but you think other people will like it, you think it will make you money or it will get views or something, that is no longer art, that's commerce. And I don't think commerce is bad. You have a job, not everyone loves their job, but it's no longer art.
Yeah.
And if you want to make art, you make it for yourself. Did it make me feel something? And that's why, like, I'm trying to really drop, like, because I've had such an issue, and this stems from doing YouTube for so long, of, like, hyper-analyzing, how is the audience going to take it? How's the audience going to, how's the audience? And even, like, with my podcast, it takes me some time to get into that flow state. But, like, I know that this conversation right here, it made me feel something, and I'm happy with that, even if no one takes anything away from it.
I think that's such, like, even super successful people might argue with that, but at the end of the day, what matters? Like, because, I mean, look at people like Mr. Beast, and maybe that's not the best example, but, like, you know, big YouTubers or big actors or anything. Like, I think with singers, we see it a lot. Like, yeah, they're at the top and they're making all this music that so many people listen to, but they've, like, lost themselves along the way because they weren't really doing it for them.
It's like Jesus. It says, what good is it to gain the world and lose your soul? I mean, literally. Why are some of the most depressed people on earth some of the richest people, some of the, like, and literally take yourself, you said you had a house, your dream car, and you now live in a car, and you said you're so much happier now than you were.
So it's
unexplainable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people agree, and I also like to point out that I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I don't think that you need to live in your car for the rest of your life to be. You can have a house, you can have your dream car, but it all comes from the perspective.
For sure.
Is your worth in those things, or is it in yourself?
That's so true. Yep.
But yeah, we've been sidetracking this story so long, but I think it's good. I think
No, I love this, and I will go on for however long too, because I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, we're almost at an hour. I'm just worried my camera battery will die.
Really?
So
That's funny. Okay.
So get it. Yeah.
So yeah. Yes, sir. I got you.
Yeah.
So.
I can't see the battery.
Yeah, I don't mean neither. I can barely see it. So so we're at last year. Okay, so like my first time. I don't want to call it attempting suicide, but when I, was really searching for my roommate's guns, when I was on medication, there were like a few, and like also to kind of skip to the end, I always wished like I could look back and say like, God came to me in a dream and bam, the next day everything went away. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Or I mean, the way that it worked out was it was a lot of little things that were in my mind at the time, not necessarily God. Now looking back, it was like so clear, man.
Yeah.
God was so much there. Even when there's a Bible verse that I just recently read. I think it's in 1 Timothy. I wish I remembered what it was, but I was at a Bible study in LA at a house church, and they read this, and I just like could not stop crying, and I was like embarrassed. I was like in the back, like wiping my tears. So I was like, it was like my first time there, and I'm like crying so hard. It's the most simple verse that I already had highlighted in my Bible and everything. But I don't know why I never saw it, but it was like, God remains faithful even when we don't. Something like that. I wish I remember the exact verse, but like, and I just read that and I thought back to my whole previous year, and it's like, holy crap, I completely doubted the existence of God, and I was doing things that I never would have done as a Christian, but holy crap, God still remained faithful, and here I am now. So do we wait for the train, or is it far?
You can keep going when it goes by.
Cool. So I remember at one point I had to talk to my mom because I was really struggling, because my mom is the person that I've always been closest to in my life. She's the only person that was one of the only people that was there really from day one. So I guess most people can say that.
All right, the train's gonna come by.
Just a train. I've never been on a train in the United States.
You can go on one. You want to go on one today?
That's cool, bro. Let's literally go on one. That'd be fun. So I was really struggling because my mom was someone that I wanted to have a good relationship with, and I don't know, ever since I moved out, our relationship had kind of faded.
Yeah.
And I worked with my parents. My business did work for them. I did some of their marketing for one of their businesses. So and I'm so thankful for my parents, especially when it comes to financial knowledge or business knowledge. Like, that is the number one thing. And Mom, if you see this, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that's the main thing I've gotten out of my relationship with them, which is kind of embarrassing. I wish I could say I learned how to love people and all this stuff. And of course, they're my parents. Almost everything I learned in my life is from them. But at the end of the day, the main thing I've learned from them that I'm insanely thankful for is business knowledge. Because I genuinely wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But basically, every time I would talk to my mom about how I was feeling emotionally, I felt I remember one time I sent her this long message that was like, Mom, I don't even want to be here anymore. What's happening? And all she did was heart the message. And I just couldn't stop crying. For the next hour, I was so upset because I felt like my own mom didn't care about me. And one day, I left work in the middle of the day and I went over to their house to pick something up or something. And I was so upset at her. I almost yelled at her, and I was like, Mom, I feel like you're not here for me. I feel like you don't listen to me. And we sat down for 45 minutes and just talked. And I don't even remember how the conversation went. All I know is I learned I remember I started going to therapy at some point, and the reason I guess I didn't talk about it is because it wasn't the lifesaver I've always thought it would be. I thought it was the solution, but once I started going, it was it was good, but it wasn't necessarily the solution. But I was going to therapy through my doctor's office, and I never had to pay for it, and I always thought, okay, insurance covers it, whatever. But I was talking to my mom, and the weirdest, it's such a small thing, but it meant the world to me. It turned out that therapy was, in fact, not free. It was very expensive, but she had been paying for it because she knew that if I would have had to pay for it, I wouldn't have been able to go because I barely could afford it. And I know that's such a small thing.
No, that's a very awesome thing.
The fact that she was doing that in secret, she never told me that, that is just showed how much she really did care about me, even though in my mind, like from what I could see, it didn't feel like she did. Like, and there was of course other stuff she talked about, like, that helped me, but like that was a big turning point because now I even when I send my mom a message and she doesn't respond the way that I wished she would, like I know that she cares about me and she loves me and she's there for me. So that was really, really cool.
I think though, and this goes back to your friends and with your mom, but like a lot of depressed people, and I certainly did this myself, was you want everyone to fill your narrative. So you text people or you say something to someone or you go somewhere and you expect something result, and no one ever lives up to your expectation. Never.
Because it's in your own head. It's
even if
up.
they do something, even if your mom gives you an awesome response, well, she didn't say this, so she didn't say this. It's never enough. And I think
so true.
That's I definitely struggled with the same thing where it was like every text I hyperanalyze.
We expect that's so unhealthy. Like especially with my relationship with my girlfriend at this time, it was like I would say certain things expecting her to act a certain way or to say a certain thing back to me that I thought would save me, and when she didn't, I would get upset.
Yeah.
And like that's so unhealthy. That is so bad to have like that expectation for friends. Like if you have that in a relationship, in a friendship, like I can almost promise you, like if you keep that expectation, like that relationship is not going to last.
You know, it's interesting. I was trying to think of a definition for like love, because I feel like everyone says the word love, but they don't like kind of like. Could you give me a definition for love?
Crap, bro.
It's hard. I don't know if I can even see my phone.
So interesting. Love.
My phone's like overheating, but I wrote down a definition. I kind of wanted to share it.
I think like love is.
Oh, okay. This is what I wrote.
I think love is patient. Love is kind. I just quoted it over.
I said the definition of love is doing something with no expectation of reward that often results in joy.
I like that a lot.
And I guess the reason I said that is because it's like when you send those texts and you want a certain reply, it's all like, it's selfish. It's not. But when you send a text with love, you text someone and you just have that's why I said it's doing something with no expectation of reward. So it's like maybe I send you a text and I have no expectation of the way you're going to respond, no expectation, but it still gives me joy to do it. That's why I say
that's so
with
good.
Love is doing something with no expectation of reward that often results in joy. So it's like I love podcasting. I'm doing this podcasting and I have no expectation that this podcast is going to be my big viral one, and I still am getting joy from it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting.
I really, really like that.
Yeah.
We good on battery?
My battery usually dies around 1:15 and we're at 107.
No way. Okay.
And I think I had a bunch of questions written down, but I think this question taking up the entire podcast is really awesome. Like I wouldn't change it.
And I didn't even like actually answer the official question yet, which is kind of fun.
But if you want to try to fit that in, you can.
Oh, I think for sure. And it's so, I had broken up with my girlfriend because I was a bad boyfriend, I guess, and I mean that. Like I'm not just like saying that like, oh, I guess I was a bad boyfriend. Like I was bad. It's hard to love someone when you don't. It's hard to truly love someone the right way when you hate yourself and everything else around you.
Dude, I feel bad because I keep butting in and just trying.
No, I'm so glad. Every single thing you've said, I love.
But there's this notion that selfish and selflessness are mutually exclusive, but they're not. When you're selfish and you love yourself, you have better love for others. And it's the same thing. I mean, this is the ultimate hack of Jesus, is when you know how much Jesus loves you, it's so much easier to love other people.
Yeah.
It's like, and when you're depressed, you feel like no one loves you, so it's so hard to love other people.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of loving other people is loving yourself.
I agree with that, because I look back at how I treated people when I didn't love myself. And I think there's maybe a misunderstanding a lot of times of what it truly means to love yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's why I like get weird when people say like, oh, you got to love yourself, because it's like, well, what does that mean? To someone that means go out and party and buy yourself the most expensive meal and stuff. That's not what it means like in my life, in your life, you know? So
yeah.
Yeah, but I had broken up with her, and then I started working with a YouTuber because that was like always my dream to do YouTube videos. Started working with a YouTuber, and it was like literally that was like 4 days after I broke up with her officially that this happened. I was still insanely depressed and stuff, and one day I was texting her. I had gone to pick up some stuff from her house, and I remember she didn't even want to see me, so she said it outside. Completely fair. I'm not upset at that, but like I just had to grab it and go. And I went home and I just sat in my bathroom. And I look back to this exact moment probably like at least 2 times a week because it makes me so joyful now. Every time I'm looking at something beautiful, like I get to see this view behind us, I always look back at this moment. I was sitting on my toilet. I closed the lid. I was sitting on my toilet. I locked the bathroom, bawling my eyes out. On the phone with suicide hotline. Like at this moment in my life, it was no hope for my future. I just wanted to be dead so bad. That is all I wanted. Because at that point, it felt like everything, all this bad stuff has happened, and the one person that was like with me through it, my girlfriend, was not with me through it anymore. Which looking back now, it's like I don't know how she was with me through it to begin with. I was such a bad boyfriend. But I think it was the Lord that kept us together for the right time. Like I'm sitting in my bathroom on the phone with suicide hotline. I was about to drive to we have a gun store in Nebraska. I was about to drive there. Like not like I was just thinking about it and I was like maybe I will. Like I didn't tell any of my friends this. The first time I ever like publicly said it was in my last Instagram post, and I didn't go into detail or anything, but like I never told anyone I wanted the end of my life. But like in this moment, I was on the phone with suicide hotline, about to drive to the gun store, and I didn't. And I always look back at that moment, and I wish I could say that was the end, and from there, everything got better. And it was to an extent, but it's like the next day wasn't the best day of my life. The day after that wasn't the best day of my life, or after that, like it was a slow incline. But I know that was the lowest point I've ever been in my entire life, because everything that was like leading up to that, like genuinely wanting more than anything for my life to be over. And I mean, we don't have enough time to explain like why I'm here now, but basically
I feel like though you kind of explained it in the like.
That's true. Yeah.
Like I was thinking about that. It's interesting because when I asked you, I was expecting more of a, this is how I got to suicide and this is how I beat suicide. But you kind of took us through this journey where it was every moment and you compared it to the present.
Yeah.
And it's like,
wow. Yeah.
And I think that was a really interesting perspective that I actually think is very unique, and I think people will appreciate it. And since this podcast is about soul wealth, it's all about taking those metrics of success out of wealth metrics and putting them in your soul. I end every podcast by asking people, and I think based on your story, this is a crazy question.
I've been waiting for this question. I've been excited for this.
When you die, what do you want people to say about you?
Bro, when I was listening to the other podcast you did, like I was like, what am I going to answer for that? Yeah. I was so scared because it's like there's so many super cool answers I could come up with.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, this might be very boring, but I want people to look at my life and look at the bad times. Even though it's so hard to be vulnerable about that, I want people to be able to look at the terrible times in my life where I didn't want to be alive, and then look at me now where I'm so overflowed with joy, it doesn't make any sense. I can't put into words how joyful I am.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like I'm happy 24/7.
Yeah.
There's still days where I'm just like, today sucked.
Yeah.
Like, but I want people to be able to look at my life and know that things will get better. If that makes sense.
You want your life to be an example for others where like they can see that they can see your life and how you went from suicide to by God's side, and that they can do it too.
100%. That's it. I want people to know, because of my life, know that even when there's no hope for the future, there's a hope for the future.
Dude, the name of this episode is going to be Jaydon Carlson, episode 11, From Suicide to By God's Side.
I love it.
Right,
seriously, I love it.
Bringing it in. That was amazing. I really think that's going to live on the internet as I hope that one day when I get big or whatever, that a lot of people come back.
That makes me so happy, man. Thank you, guys. I love you.